Yes, sir. As you all remember, there was a group that came talking about the chapter lock creek cleanup, and once we had the meeting and what they asked from the council, I thought it would be prudent to actually reach out to Eastland and have them come and just give you a briefing, a short briefing, where we are, so you can ask questions and things that you may be concerned with. And thank you to Ms. McCully and her team for agreeing to be here today. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gail McCully, and she'll turn it over to her team as she sees fit.
Well, thank you all for your time. Councilwoman, I'm going to pass out a fact sheet. We put a fact sheet together for you guys, so that way you can have that, and if anything comes up, most of y'all have my phone number, so y'all can call me, email me with any kind of questions that you might have that you think of after the presentation. The presentation is very short to be cognizant of y'all's time. But where we are on the Anniston PCB site, well, we're going to go over some of our accomplishments, the overall status of our operable units. The Anniston PCB site is broken up in different operable units, and I'll show you a map of that. The field sampling that's occurring in Anniston and the upcoming project activities, and I try to keep it concise to that, mostly because what you guys are concerned with is what's happening within the city limits of Anniston. But the Anniston PCB site, as you guys can see, here is the plant site right here. Operable unit 1 and 2 is, we would say, the flood, 11th Street ditch to Snow Creek all the way to Oxford. And then operable unit 4 is the very end of Snow Creek and Chocolaca Creek to the mouth of Lake Loganara. Where we are today, residential cleanups, that was the big push at the very beginning. Over 6,000 properties were sampled, and we cleaned up 607 residential properties. There's about 36 properties that still need to be addressed, but we either don't have access to them or they're considered unsuitable for removal. EPA has, if the property is it's zoned residential, but it's heavily wooded, it's considered unsuitable. So once it's cleared or going to be developed, and the trees are cut down, then we would come in and do those removals after we get access. And getting access has not been, we got all the low-hanging fruit. The EPA went in and served warrants to gain access, but if you live on the property, they weren't going to issue warrants to those owners. So it was mostly the vacant properties that we got access to. Now, one thing we do is we review these properties every single year to see if there's any kind of ownership changes or anything like that, and we reach out to the owners every year on an annual basis to see if they've changed their mind to give us access to do those cleanups. And then in the residential area, this is where we work with the city of Anniston. We do soil management support for PCB residuals. We have a soil management portal that the city logs into when they're doing work in different areas of residential areas, and if it's areas that might have some impacts, they contact us, and we've done a really good job of working with the city on that. All the utilities also have this portal, so we work with the utilities, Waterworks, Alabama Power, and we're continuing to make it better. We get feedback from the city and the utilities, and try to make it a seamless process. And then as far as the plant cleanup, some of you guys know, we've finished most of the cleanup. We've capped the landfill areas. There's been surface water controls that have been installed, and we have a groundwater treatment system that's operational, and then we're going to be doing an upgrade because of an increased amount of groundwater that's going to be going through that. Where we are in the non-residential area, this is the Anniston area, the OU2 or OU1/OU2. OU1 stands for residential, OU2 stands for the non-residential. As you guys, we just went through, we have completed a lot of the residential. Where we are on non-residential, EPA selected a remedy for soil back in 2017. We had to go through the court system and negotiate an agreement on how to implement it. We did all of that work. We did all of the work plans. The EPA approved it. So now, back in 21, 22, we started our field sampling support more concise design on that work. And as far as Chocolate Creek, you guys have seen a lot of stuff in the news. Just EPA issued a proposed plan of what remediation is going to be needed. Back in June, they had a public comment period. Everybody submitted their public comments, and so we're now waiting for EPA to respond to those comments and issue a record of decision for Chocolate Creek. And once they do that, we'll move forward, go into a negotiation with them on how to implement the remedy, agreement on the remedy, and then go through a sampling program to fine-tune our engineering design there. Field sampling in Anniston, it started in 2022. It should be done by the end of this year, is what we're hoping for, as long as weather and access it goes our way. Access has been the most difficult problem because you're dealing with businesses and then lawyers get involved. Nothing against lawyers, because I know there's a couple here, but once it gets into the legal aspect, it just draws it out even a little bit longer. So we've been able to work through a lot of the access issues, and we're going to be finished with the soil sampling, or the land use characterization was done in last year. We have a groundwater investigation that's going to be completed in this year, by the end of this year, and we'll be doing mapping of Snow Creek for the sediment deposits. That was done last year. So basically the areas that we're going to be cleaning up in Anniston is going to be Snow Creek. We're going to be doing some sediment cleanup, creek bank cleanup and stabilization, and then the floodplain soils. So the different businesses that are within the floodplain area that have been identified. The groundwater work, actually, we will go into there. So this is basically the plant site is in purple. All these yellow dots are the different properties where we're going to be doing cleanups, and then along Snow Creek, the different areas of Snow Creek that we'll be doing cleanups. So once we get into the engineering design and we pick a contractor, we'll probably be working with the utilities and the city of Anniston, making sure that our efforts are coordinated with them on actual cleanup. But basically, the areas, there's 36 soil cleanup locations. 14 are all low activity special use areas. EPA has nomenclature that is unlike anybody else. Special use properties are properties where residential people congregate. It's either a daycare, a church, or a school. The low activity areas usually don't own a large piece of property, but portions of it aren't being used. Those are the low activity areas. We've already cleaned the high activity area where it comes in contact with people on a more frequent basis. But we have 13 non-residential soil locations. These are businesses throughout the community. The cleanup levels at 21 parts per million in the surface and 97 in the subsurface. And then we have 9 interim measure locations. These are areas where we put caps in for interim that are being re-looked at and buttoned up to make it as final cleanup measures. And then we have 53 sediment deposits that we've identified that we'll be addressing. And then we have 2 areas where there's potential groundwater concerns that we're evaluating right now to see if we need to do any kind of additional groundwater work. And
those 53 sediment deposits are within the city borders. That's not full.
Some of it goes into Oxford. It's along Snow Creek. So basically,
so your two groundwater things. I know you say you're possibly looking at it.
we're evaluating that now. The blue marks right here are the groundwater. This is right next on the other side of Clydesdale from our plant. It's all the property that we own. And then this is actually right adjacent to First Missionary Baptist Church. Is that area. And then this whole chemical somewhere around here. So
Yep.
that's that kind of the demarcation. So these are the ones from Oxford. So these are the ones in Anniston.
Right.
So we'll finish the field investigation. We'll submit everything to EPA for approval. Once they approve everything, we'll I think the design period probably will take at least a year to year and a half, it just depends. And then, once that's done, we can go out to bid, pick a contractor, and then start project implementation. But part of this project implementation seems like it's really easy. We're gonna have to go back and get additional access, and that's gonna be the hard part. Some of the people will give us access, but it's working with multiple different entities has been a challenge, to say the least. And then, once everything's done, project implementation, I think, depending on whether, you know, everything going well, I think 2 to 4 years, somewhere between that and the cleanup. And then, once that is all completed, this is something, well, you're gonna be retiring, so you, but the person who takes over, that's when we'll finalize our institutional control program. And that's when we do the day-to-day maintenance on it. And I try to get all that in a nutshell. Do you guys have any questions?
Any further comments? Thank you so much.
Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2 appears on the consent agenda is simply the extension of the jail lease that appears in Dropbox. Any issues or questions there, or anything further along the stuff?
No, sir, the only thing I thank the county for what they've done, because, you know, once we finalize tonight, it's final, and that's for 5 more years. The chief will agree with the whole,